communications and as being evenly divided, pro and con, on the hunt. No one else on this commission questioned that characterization and accepted this characterization of the public comment. The public record shows that you actually received over 4,800 emails, 98% of which were opposed to the hunt. NoBearHuntNevada.org believes this characterization was intentional to deny public input to the December meeting. Second, the open meeting law requires discussion of public comments submitted. The majority of the emails were against killing bears. The option of not having a hunt was never discussed. This lack of complete discussion of public comments is also a violation of the open meeting law. Third, the general public was not represented at the December meeting. On this commission, there is only one commissioner that represents the general public. Our general public representative is Commissioner Hal Shrum. In spite of 98% of these emails being opposed to the hunt, Mr. Shrum still voted in favor of the hunt. NoBearHuntNevada.org considers this violation of his oath to well and faithfully perform all duties of his office, and we are considering legal action. Since the general public was not represented at this December meeting, the vote approving the hunt should be invalidated. This December vote is a slap in the face to Nevada voters and Nevada taxpayers. Finally, NoBearHuntNevada.org calls on the legislature to pass legislation to permanently protect bears and to reconfigure this commission to properly represent the public interest. I'd like to submit a copy of my comments to the Secretary.
Thank you for coming out today. Appreciate your comments. Who else do we have? Ma'am. Thanks for coming out again. Remember from last meeting.
My name is Megan Sewell, and I'm speaking on behalf of the Humane Society of the United States, representing almost 11 million constituents, including more than 95,000 in the state of Nevada. I would like to have my comments entered into the record. I would like to comment on the Commission's adoption of a bear hunt in December. The HSUS opposes the initiation of the first ever trophy hunt of bears in Nevada due to the indeterminate demographics of the bear population and the unsporting nature of the methods of hunting proposed. The Commission has not demonstrated a need to initiate a black bear hunt. No full population study has been released to the public despite repeated requests and will apparently not be released for years. According to information available to the public, the Nevada bear population has not changed much in decades and is remarkably small. In 2008, a study was presented to the Commission by the Department revealing that a majority of residents oppose the hunting of bears in Nevada. A poll in the Carson City, Nevada Appeal found that more than 62% of respondents oppose bear hunting. 60% of respondents in a Tahoe Daily Tribune poll oppose bear hunting. More than 57% of respondents in a North Lake Tahoe Bonanza poll oppose bear hunting. A Mason-Dixon polling and research poll revealed that by 74 to 20%, Nevada voters believe that the state should prioritize non-lethal methods of solving conflicts between people and bears. According to the department, the majority of conflicts with bears are a result of them gaining access to human food. The department has also stated that a legal harvest season would not then seem to be a solution to the nuisance bear problem, due to the fact that new bears simply move in to take the place of bears who are removed. Shooting bears at random will not reduce conflicts with bears. Nevada residents deserve effective solutions to human-bear conflicts. Thank you for the opportunity to comment.
Thank you for coming out. Always appreciate comments. We'll take them into account. Anybody else? Public comment items that are not action items on the agenda? Ma'am. Come on down. Welcome.
Good morning. My name is Catherine Bricker, and I'm from Zephyr Cove, Nevada, and I'm a member of NoBearHuntNevada.org. I have a couple areas that I'd like to comment on that would have been helpful to me as a citizen or a public person, and I think it could have moved our whole issue forward better and more harmoniously than it did. One thing that has been emphasized again and again is that the Commission makes decisions that are science-based, and it seems selective in that science. We still seem to be having the discussion as to whether hunting would help the human-bear interface problem, and we still seem to be having the discussion, or at least they're quoting you, Chairman Rain, in the paper, your comments that would suggest that hunting in any way would positively impact the urban bear problem. And all the science shows that, in fact, it won't. And Mr. Lackey has stated that. And Mr. Lackey's statistics on the Tahoe bears have actually been used in some of the studies, which included numerous other states as well as British Columbia. So it would be really helpful to me as a member of the public if we could agree that hunting won't in any way impact the urban bear, and there could be more consistency among yourselves, so we could put that issue to rest and then discuss other issues. The other issue is that the science clearly shows in all the western states that there's a linear correlation between the amount a large predator is hunted and the rise in the human-predator interface problems, whether it be cougars taking animals out of ranchers' land or bears coming in and getting our trash. Now, this is scientifically proven. It's in every western state, and we have all that data, but I never see mention of that science. And so it concerns me that the science being used is quite selective and supports the intention to hunt the bears rather than really looking at the breadth of science. I brought 3 studies just to show you what I mean, and I could provide you 17 more. So that is a point of concern for me. The other area has to do with enforcement. In my being told about the laws, I understand that it is not your job. You're not in any way obligated to consider the safety factor or how your proposal will affect the public and the use of the land. However, you do have the discretion of just simply good judgment, and there is a risk-benefit ratio to any decision you make. If we look at California, we can see that poaching there has become endemic, and this is all information coming from their Fish and Game Committee. It says that in California, violations rose from 6,538 in 2003 to 17,840 in 2007. It says the illegal sale of California wildlife and wildlife body parts generates an estimated $100 million in revenue each year, second only to the illegal drug trade. From 2005 to 2007, a 2-year period, illegal bear kills leaped from 9 to 49. And they just say they can't control it, and we know that, according to Wild Justice TV, it's these very dangerous methamphetamine gangs that are organizing and doing this. Is your decision in opening our borders? Have you thought about our protection? Thank you.
Thank you. Appreciate you coming out. If anybody ever sees any of those illegal activities, a lot of guys around you with badges, please forward it to them. I'm sure they'd be happy to hear from you. Okay, next, okay, ma'am, I think we have one more public comment, and then I think we're moving it on to number 7. Looks like we had one more here.
Good morning. Stacia Newman, and I'm here representing 2 organizations, and I just want to go on the record. I am representing the Nevada Political Action for Animals and also Compassion Charity of America. I would like to go on record that we are opposed to the black bear hunt and feel that it should be put on hold. And the calls and emails that we have been getting, which are into the hundreds, that it's a general public opinion that they want the bear hunt stopped. Thank you.
Thank you. Appreciate you coming out today. And this looks like our last public comment. Go ahead. Oh, one more back there.
For the record, Gina Greisen, Nevada Voters for Animals. I'm actually very concerned that you would limit the public comment at this point, since unless people speak directly to the topics on Agenda Item 12, they won't be allowed to speak unless you plan to let them just speak openly on agenda item 12. If anyone else wants to speak in public comment, they should be allowed to do it. That's the minimum under the law, as I understand it, and maybe your legal counsel can correct me if I'm wrong. I'm a native Nevadan, and I am very disturbed that we have come to this point. I attended the Clark County CAB the other day, and it was interesting when one of the board members made a comment about not being used to listening to women. So it's obvious that maybe this board, yes, I'm shocking. Obviously, you're not used to probably this much outcry over an issue, but I can tell you that the public is overwhelmingly opposed to this. But then you already know that. I was the one that spoke to the governor's office the other day. It was Deputy Chief of Staff Ann Wilkinson that said, "We've heard your message loud and clear. We've received more letters regarding opposition to this bear hunt than we have on the budget crisis in Nevada." That speaks volumes. This board, and as you've heard testimony earlier, we believe there is a lot of procedural defects in the way that this regulation came to be. There's been open meeting law violations filed. I believe that this board should table this agenda item today and really take into consideration the feelings of the public. I don't know how the person who's representing the public, I believe it's Commissioner Shrum, could vote for this regulation when there were so many thousands of emails sent in opposition. I believe the public would give a no vote of confidence to Commissioner Shrum for his vote on this issue, and I believe if he can't adequately represent the public, maybe he should step down off of this board. And I mean that with all due respect. If you represent the public, you need to take into consideration the public comment. I also am concerned about the wild horse issue. You took off the agenda item, or you left on the agenda item, I believe, on the trust issue that the governor was concerned about, even though you weren't going to take action on it, but you wanted discussion. There was a lot of, so maybe I'm wrong. But then you took off the letter regarding the wild horse issue, and at least there should have been discussion. And I appreciate Commissioner Macbeth's comments about that. Deeply concerned about that letter. I believe there will probably be more complaints filed. And I urge you to table agenda item 12 and reconsider also the denying water rights to wild horses. Thank you.
Excellent. Thank you for coming out, Dave. Appreciate your input. Looks like we did indeed have one more back here. Ma'am? Oh, okay.
All set?
I'm sorry.
Not a problem.
Always listen to the lawyer. It's a rule I always heard.
I understand. My name is Heather Lunsford. I want my comments entered into the record. My issues concern the science used in determining the viability of the Nevada black bear hunt. Nevada state statutes require that the regulation of hunting be based on scientific data, yet there is no public data on record conclusively establishing the number of bears in Nevada, nor is there any data stating what the minimum acceptable bear population threshold in the state is to begin with. Bear biologist Carl Lackey has stated the population is robust enough to support a hunt, but nobody seems to know how many bears there really are. In December, there were reportedly 200 to 300 bears. In the Washoe County Advisory Board meeting just a few days ago on January 27th, he said there were 400 to 500 bears. Why are the numbers changing every month without data to back them up? At that very same meeting, he also said, quote, "I won't make a public statement about the current bear population without more data," end quote. You can't have it both ways. How can anyone accurately determine that the population can withstand a bear hunt without knowing how many bears there are to hunt? In addition, why has poaching not been addressed? As was mentioned earlier by another speaker, a well-known fact that hunting facilitates poaching, and this will inevitably become a serious issue for Nevada as it has for California. It has been stated that this hunt can afford to lose 20 bears, but with poaching it's bound to far exceed that. Finally, I am holding up a copy of a personal email that Carl Lackey sent out August 19th to numerous county advisory board members and other individuals, stating that he was in favor of the bear hunt. Quote, "We are already receiving letters to the NDOW website from the opposition, but we have not received one letter so far from anyone in favor," end quote. He then went on to actively encourage the readers to voice their support for the hunt by emailing NDOW, quote, as soon as possible. Biologists are required to approach their scientific endeavors with complete neutrality in order to produce unbiased, accurate data. The NDOW vote to approve the black bear hunt was based in large part on testimony that verified the hunt was viable and sustainable, and surely it was presumed by the Commission that this research was conducted in a fair and unbiased manner. However, this discovery obviously raises serious questions as to the reliability of the data submitted. This public is charged to accept the hunt on the merits of science, but we have yet to see anything in the realm of authentic, impartial, verifiable science. If you want us to trust the science, gentlemen, give us science we can trust. This bear hunt must be tabled until these issues are addressed and corrected. Thank you for your time.
Thank you. Appreciate you coming out today. You want to go over that?
This is something that the lady from Nevada Voters for Wildlife actually just inadvertently, in a way, brought to my attention. You're actually free to speak about action items also at this time. I don't think the chairman meant to actually limit it to the action item itself. You're actually free. I mean, this is public comment time. You're free to talk about those action items now if you so wish.
Yeah. All I was saying is you will have an opportunity at the action item to go ahead and talk about it.
We were not afforded that opportunity at the county advisory board meetings.
That's was all the statement has shown. And, you know, different bodies do things different ways. This body, we try to allow action items to go ahead and, you're allowed to do that. You can also talk now on an item. That's the law, I believe. Okay, we are, okay, go ahead, Mr. Macbeth. Public comment.
I'd like to respond to the statement made with regard to women, that you actually haven't talked to a woman before. The comment that was made at the county board, advisory board meeting here in Clark County. I was at the meeting, and I'm not sure if what I just heard was correct, but I want to clarify what happened. Somebody from the audience, I'm not going to say who it was, but somebody from the audience made the statement to the vice chairman of the county advisory board, Tracy Truman, that he had obviously never talked to a woman before, the insinuation being at one of these meetings. He took immediate exception to that, immediate. And I want to make sure that everybody understands that prior to Chairman Dixon being the chairman of the Clark County Advisory Board for numerous years, Cindy Alexander, a woman, has been the chairman of that advisory board. And so any insinuation that the sportsmen do not take into account women as part of their group is just absolutely incorrect. And I want to make sure that everybody understands that. One, Tracy Truman denied that immediately, and I think it was just an inappropriate remark that was made during that meeting.
Thank you very much. I know, things like that are quite sensitive, and if I didn't take into account everything every woman ever said, my mother would take exception to me, and I probably wouldn't be anywhere. So therefore, we take commentary. Okay, we'll have you, go ahead, and then we'll have Mr. Capurro. Well, Mr. Capurro, and then we'll have you, ma'am.
Just to follow up, but if that were the case, neither my wife, my daughter, or my niece would ever speak to me again because they're avid hunters and fishermen. And if what was
Please be polite.
indicated were true, neither my wife, my daughter, or my niece would ever speak to me again because they are avid hunters and fishermen. And I listen to everything they say on all issues.
Absolutely. All right, ma'am, looks like we had one more public comment, and hopefully we can get moving on with number 7.
My name is Jennifer McCarty, and I was actually at that NDOW meeting. It's gotten a little misconstrued there because I was actually the first one. It was Gary Pratt there on the end that said to me when I raised my hand to ask a question, he was the one who said, yeah, we already know your name. And he started laughing, and I said, are you mocking me? And he said, no, I'm just not used to hearing from a woman. So he actually did say that, and that is when this person up here said to the board, I know you're not used to hearing from a woman before she started hers. So that's actually where it started. And I just wanted to clarify that and go on the record with it.
Thank you. Fortunately, it's another board, another time, another place. And would please like to move on off of that subject before my mama whoops me. Okay, further public comment? Seeing none, we'll close the public hearing. We'll move on to item number 7, which is approval of the minutes. Did everyone get a chance to read the minutes? Hey, do we have any corrections on the minutes from anybody? Like to, go ahead, Mr. Howell.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. On page 5, the date is incorrect, I believe. Should be December 3rd instead of December 24th.
Okay, page 5, Wool is listing of names, right at the top, yep.
Also, on page 48, it would be the second paragraph down where it starts Don Moldy. It says, it's quoting Dr. Moldy, and it says, "Commission that in the last year," this is the third sentence, "in this state, we killed 90,000 coyotes." And I'm sure what he meant to say, because I've heard him say it before, was in the last 10 years, we've killed 90,000 coyotes. We haven't got to that number yet, regrettably.
All right, anybody else have any other changes? If not, I'll entertain a motion to approve the agenda with those changes. Mr. Vogler?
In that same paragraph, he also says 2,000 mountain lions. I don't believe the season allows for that, so that has to also be an error.
I don't know if he said that or not. I mean, to be what he said, we got to leave what he said in. That's what's in the minutes. I don't know how we want to deal with that, so I'm waiting for a motion.
I move to approve with the changes noted.
Okay, it's been properly moved and seconded to approve the minutes with the change on page 5, making it December 4th, and the insert, and I believe we did see that in writing as well, commission in the last 10 years on the third line there, third paragraph. That was it. Does that correctly characterize the motion?
Yes, sir.
All right, does everybody understand the motion? All those in favor of the motion signify by stating aye.
Aye.
All opposed? Motion passes 8-0. Agenda's approved. Thank you very much for writing these out, Suzanne. I'm hoping you don't have carpal tunnel. Man, you do an amazing job. Appreciate it. Extremely thorough. Always appreciate it. Okay, we're moving on to a, how many minutes do you like? 5-minute break? Okay, let's have a 5-minute break, and then we'll come back with item number 11. So go ahead and set up for item number 11. Yes? Are we going to take a lunch break? Hopefully we can take one. I'm hoping one of the other thing, we can go down to the cafeteria at 30, you know? That's my goal in life.
Maybe announce that.
Yeah, what I'm hoping to do here is to hopefully get down on the agenda, down to item number 12, hopefully, so we can, before item number 12, hopefully we can take a break for about 30 minutes lunch. That's my goal here. On this item, let's see, we need Deputy Attorney General. And he'll be back. I don't think we're too bad on this item. Okay, Clark County, call this meeting back to order. Clark County Road Access. Like to have Commissioner Shrum run this item. He has really worked hard to bring this together. Commissioner Shrum, you could announce who's the presenters.
Oh, good morning. Mr. Bull, are you going to speak first? You want me to go ahead and do this?
Whatever's your pleasure.
Okay. Good morning. As you know by now, I'm Commissioner Shrum, and so we'll start this thing off. In the past, I've wandered around all over the state of Nevada and southern Nevada, and in the past, few years, I found that I kept running into road closed signs and diverted routes and things like that. So I started doing some research. Finally ended up over at the BLM and picked up books, and with their assistance, I spent time over there. And this morning we have Mary Jo Rugwell with us. She's District Manager of Southern Nevada District Office. It's good to see you again, ma'am.
Thank you, sir.
With her, we have a support group of Gail Mars Smith and Carrie Running, and we have Bob, I didn't miss you, Mr. Bob Ross Jr., and in jurisdiction, we have Erica Schumacher. Good to see you. And also, I had invited someone from the Sheriff's Office, Clark County Sheriff's Office, and we have representatives there. And I don't know if anyone from the Overton substation is here or not. All right. Glad to see all you folks here this morning. What we've done is we're really running short on time, and we scheduled an hour for this, and because the folks from the BLM are on short time frame, I asked them if they would speak first. They'll have about 20 minutes, and I put a little pamphlet together. This is just the scarcest bit of information they have. Being so short, this is one of the books I worked with. It's kind of out of date, and so that's what I had to work with, and they've been very helpful with bringing me up to date with other information. They've given me maps, times, and to balance this out, I went to Bunkerville and spoke to Mr. Bundy up there, and had time to spend with him and his family. He's here today with his wife. He will speak after Mrs. Rugwell speaks. I think I have covered most everything, and then if you all will bear with me, I'll just go ahead and read a really short abbreviated history which lays the groundwork of what we're confronting here, or what we're faced with a desert tortoise, with our roads being closed, diverted routes, with limited grazing, lack of grazing, and various things that night. The history is in 1984, the Environmental Defense Fund, Natural Resources Council, and Defenders of Wildlife petitioned the Fish Wildlife Service to list a desert tortoise in Arizona, California, and Nevada as endangered. In 1990, the tortoise was listed as threatened. In January 8th, 1993, several plaintiffs filed a motion to stop the transfer of public land to the state of California for construction of low-level nuclear waste disposal facility in Ward Valley, located in Southern California. On January 27th, 1993, the Natural Resources Defense Council and other environmental groups sued to compel the designation of critical habitat for the Mojave population of the desert tortoise. A total of 6.4 million acres has been designated by the Fish and Wildlife Service as critical habitat for the Mojave population of the desert tortoise. 5 million, that's 5 million acres of desert tortoise is in Nevada. 1.2 million is listed as critical habitat. More than 1.5 million acres in a northern Mojave Recovery Unit may be designated as wilderness. Approximately 864,000 acres of the designated habitat in Nevada is in the northeastern Mojave Recovery Unit, which consists of Gold Butte, Pacone, Mormon Mesa, Beaver Dam Slope, Coyote Springs, eastern one-third of Ivanpah, and northern one-third of the Paiute El Dorado Desert Wildlife Management Areas. According to the BLM's Resource Management Plan on page 021, a desert tortoise home range can vary from 10 to 198 acres. A population of 100,000 would need 1 million to 19,800,000 acres. The recovery plan recommends a minimum 1,000 square miles. That's 640,000 acres in each unit. 3 units in Nevada equals 1,920 acres. U.S. Fish and Wildlife Service is responsible for designation of critical habitat, and BLM is to manage the desert tortoise on public lands. After 1993, Clark County created a desert conservation plan which ceded large areas of land to developers. In 1998, the county bought the grazing rights in Bunkerville, Nevada, and is now an area of critical environmental concern. The recovery team that wrote the plan determined that domestic livestock grazing is incompatible with desert tortoise recovery. This is on page I-2 of the Resource Management Plan. The management plan states a 15-year study data is insufficient, and planners don't know if the population is stationary, fluctuating, or undergoing a population trend. In Nevada, the majority, approximately 87%, of the total desert tortoise habitat is managed by the BLM. 2 full-time law enforcement people patrol the areas of critical environmental concern. And I listed some questions for Mrs. Rockwell, and she's going to go ahead and give us a brief, let me try that again, a brief background, and then go ahead and answer these questions. As I say, this is not a debate in any way at all. It's not a witch hunt. I just want people to be aware of what we're facing here in Southern Nevada, what we're going to encounter, especially people like me, the bird hunters and the people that are out there all the time. If I'm wandering around and I'm looking at quail, I'll tell you the truth, I just do not see signs. I just plain miss them. I'm looking for birds, or I'm just out knocking around, or I'm just driving up a dirt road because I want to see what's there. I have done that since 1965. I've done it all over the state. I've gone to other states, but primarily my home is Nevada. When I moved here in 1965, it's like somebody opened the door and said, "Here you go." And that's just exactly what I did. Ms. Rockwell, if you please.
Thank you. Mr. Chairman and Commissioners, I appreciate the opportunity to be here today. As Commissioner Schrum mentioned, my name is Mary Jo Rugwell. I am the District Manager for the Bureau of Land Management here in Southern Nevada. My purpose here this afternoon is to go ahead and just answer the written questions that the Commissioner gave us, just to try to clarify some of the issues that he raised. The first question that he gave us was, since the BLM does not own the land, where do they get the judicial authority to designate roads or close roads and trails? The Bureau of Land Management manages the public lands for the benefit of the American people. And our primary legal authority to do that is the Federal Land Policy and Management Act of 1976. You may have heard this referred to by the acronym, which is FLPMA, you know, that we always use a bunch of acronyms in the federal government. The BLM is a part of the executive branch of the government, and our responsibility is to develop regulations to implement the laws that Congress passes. And so when FLPMA was passed, BLM had to, what they call, promulgate regulations in order to implement that law. And that the FLPMA is really our organic act, which gives us the mandate to manage the BLM-administered public lands. The second question was, who decides which roads or trails to close? And the BLM has the responsibility for making the final decision, but we don't do that in a vacuum. We do that with a lot of public input. The road designations in Southern Nevada were an implementation action of our resource management plan that was completed in 1998. That plan identified certain areas that would be limited as to designated roads and trails in terms of travel. The road designations for over 550,000 acres in Clark County took over 3 years to work on.
with input from over 400 stakeholders. The rural community helped us by documenting a lot of the roads. The BLM conducted 4 public meetings, and we provided 50 days for the public to comment on the plan. After the decision, the public was allowed another 30 days to appeal the record of decision on that plan. We did not receive any appeals on the road designation decision, so it was then our job to implement it. It's important to note that of the over 906 miles of roads that were analyzed in that road designation plan, the BLM left 90% of those roads open. So we did not by any means close even the majority or anywhere close to it. The next question was, how long will this plan stay in effect? And the answer to that is that road designations stay in effect as long as the resource management plan is in effect. Our agency continues, with the help of partners, to monitor the roads and trails and the effects on the resources that are found there. Changes to road designations can be made, but that can only happen through another analysis and another public process. The next question was, who decides when the desert tortoise is recovered? And the answer to that question is that the U.S. Fish and Wildlife Service makes that decision. The criteria for delisting the tortoise was outlined in the recovery plan that was put together when it was decided that the tortoise would be listed. The next question was, when the ranchers leave, who maintains springs and water holes? The answer is that the waters are maintained by the Bureau of Land Management and the Nevada Department of Wildlife for wildlife benefit in partnership with the entity that acquires the water rights in Clark County. Some examples of this are the county itself, the Nature Conservancy, and other folks like that have the water rights. The next question was, if you are traveling on a designated road or trail and you arrive at an intersection, if there are no signs, what happens if you take the wrong road and get a citation? Generally speaking, when we put up signs to show that roads have been designated through the planning process, we really do try to give people some time to get used to that, because people that have used the area for a long time won't be familiar with the new designation. And so we make every effort to not, not cite folks right out of the gate. In the Gold Butte area, we have kiosks with map information on them at a lot of the major intersections out there. One of the problems that we have, not just in Gold Butte but in other areas, is that folks often decide that they don't like the signs and they take them down. The net effect of that is that it costs the taxpayer more because we have to put the signs back up, and it's confusing for the public when they're out there trying to recreate. There are times, of course, when members of the public do know where they shouldn't be and they still choose to go there anyway. That is when a citation is issued. And when citations are issued, you have a couple of choices. You can go ahead and pay the fine and the court fees, or you can always plead your case before a federal magistrate in the Las Vegas Federal Court if you feel that the citation was not appropriate. We are working really hard to ensure that the signs that have been put up to mark the designations, to make it clear for the public, stay in place. And we have a staff that goes out and monitors this and tries to replace signs that have disappeared. The next question is, who has the authority in Gold Butte, the sheriff or the BLM? And the answer to this question is, it depends, and I'm not trying to be evasive here. It truly does depend. If you have a crime against people or property, or you have a situation where search and rescue is needed, that's clearly under the jurisdiction of the Sheriff's Department. Our law enforcement rangers are few, and they are happy to help the Sheriff's Department in any of these situations when they're available. The violations of anything, of any federal law or federal regulation on BLM lands comes under the authority of our law enforcement rangers under FLIPMA. And some examples of things that would come under BLM law enforcement rangers authority would be something like theft of a government property, a vandalism of a sign or other government property, off-road travel in areas that are closed, and any kind of violation of the Archaeological Resources Protection Act. Those kinds of things would come under BLM law enforcement jurisdiction. We try very hard to have good relationships with local law enforcement, particularly in Clark County. The last question was, is there a memorandum of understanding? We do have one memorandum of understanding in place currently with Las Vegas Metro for search and rescue in wilderness areas. We don't have the ability or the capability to find and rescue people when they get out in areas that they're not, either not familiar with, or they get out and have an accident. And so Las Vegas Metro does the search and rescue for us. I also did want to mention that prior to the meeting, we provided a copy of a fact sheet to all of the commissioners and a copy of a map. These pieces of information we plan to make available on our website. We're still working on refining the map and making it ready to go on the website, so it's not there yet, but we have every intention of putting it there so that the public has ready access to it. Those were all the written questions that I was given, but I would be happy to attempt to answer any other questions you might have.
What we had decided that we would have you go ahead and speak, and because of our time restraints, we would not have any questions from the audience until after you spoke and Mr. Bundy gets to speak, and then we'll open it up for general public response. Like I say, I would like to spend the whole afternoon discussing with you and Mr. Bundy and the officers, but we're just time limited, and we can just barely scratch the surface of the subject. But I certainly appreciate you coming out this morning. Thank you.
Thank you.
Good to see you.
Beth, you had a point? I'm sorry.
Yeah, I'd like to make the point that the commissioners also have questions. I have a couple of questions of
Certainly.
Ms. Rugwell. I don't know if this is the time or where you wanted to do that.
After everybody's had a chance to speak, I think, so we can hear all sides and make the answers that they presented.
Okay.
All right?
Thank you. Mr. Bundy, would you and your wife like to come up here and speak, please? Good morning, Mr. Bundy. Mr. Bundy is a longtime rancher from Bunkerville. His family moved here in the 1800s. He's been ranching up there, and just to cover the ground for you folks don't know, there's been some contention between the ranching families up there and the BLM, and like I say, this is not a winch hut. It's not a debate. I just want people to get both sides of the question and everyone be familiar with what's going on. Good to see you, Mr. Bundy.
Thank you.
You too, ma'am.
I'm pleased to be here with you as a rancher, and, you know, we sort of co-partner with the outdoors and the resource there. And I want to tell you that I do have a great respect for you. I've got let me see if I can get this up here. I want to start out with a little bit of background. I'm going to do it quite fast, so it's just sort of a educational thing, so you'll understand where I come from and how I think. First, I want you to know that I am a God-fearing man, and that I believe that this is a choice country, and I believe that we've been provided this, and we've been provided a wilderness, or not a wilderness, but resources that are great, that are made for man to use. And I understand that we need to take care of them, but they are made for man's use, and that's sort of my background. Now, we're going to talk about jurisdiction here as I go on. I'm going to give you this little bit of go through this chart here just a little bit, real fast. I'm calling it the proper form of government. Okay, let's start out down here with we the people. And we the people were people of the 13 original colonies. And we needed something. We needed our life, liberty, and property protected. And we wasn't getting it from a king of England. So we rebelled, and we won a revolutionary war. And we could become 13 sovereign states. And then those 13 sovereign states formed the United States Constitution. Remember, there was a united states. There was united 13 states that created the Constitution. In the Constitution, we created three branches of government: our executive, legislative, and jurisdiction, or juridical. Okay, and they created states. And those states those created states were created under the equal footing doctrine, which meant they were to be sovereign states like the original 13. Now, when we become a state of Nevada in 1864, we divided ourselves up into subdivisions of counties. And those counties have county commissioners, and we also have a county sheriff. Our county sheriff is elected by we the people of Clark County. And so when I'm talking to you about public lands, I'm talking to you about the public lands of Clark County really belonging to we the people, Clark County. And when I talk about the sheriff, I'm talking about Clark County Sheriff. And we have some representatives here today representing our Clark County Sheriff. The county commissioners and the sheriff are our closest people, or are the closest government to the people. Now, what was we after? We was after, when we started this whole circle, we was after some protection for our life, liberty, and property. And when we created the Constitution, we created that. We have got, and now we have got county commissioners and sheriffs that are paid to do that. And so what the question is here is who has authority over this land? And it's always been a question, but I want to clarify that a little bit. Now just who has authority over this land? When we're talking about authority, we're talking about jurisdiction, sovereignty, policing power. And now we've got a federal government that's come in here, and they're making rules and regulations, and lots of them. And do they have the authority and the jurisdiction to do this? You know, this is a big question. I challenge that jurisdiction and authority here today, and I say we the people didn't form that type of government. We formed a proper form of government, and that is not part of our proper form of government. The proper form of government would have we the people of Clark County taking care of our public lands. We, the people, have a sheriff and county commissioners to do that.
Okay, Mr. Buddy, I don't mean to interrupt you, but I sure would like these folks to know about, there's so much we cover, but I'd like them to know about your farming and what you've done with the territory up there and water and things and how this all has affected you. And if we go into a wilderness area, how's that going to affect you? Are you still going to be able to ranch? Have others given up ranching? Explain some of that to the people, if you would, please. I know you've been gracious with your time with me. Could you spare some of them? And we're running awfully short on time because I'd like to open it up to questions. I know people out here have questions for you, and for Mrs. Rugwell too, for that matter.
Okay, we just will go back a little bit of who I am and my background. I'm, again, Cliven Bundy. I'm a rancher. But I'm well known for firing the BLM about 15, 20 years ago. Why did I fire the BLM? Because I didn't want them to manage my ranch in Clark County. I didn't feel like they had jurisdiction to manage my ranch, and they wasn't doing a good job. In other words, if they kept managing it, I was out of business. Just like the 52 ranchers that was in Clark County, they're all out of business. I'm the only one that runs a valuable livestock industry in this Clark County. So what I learned is the fact that they were only managers. And I learned another thing, that when I signed their permit, I was signing contracts, and I believed that I had to uphold that contract. When I quit signing my contracts with the BLM, then I released myself and through constructive notices to the Solicitor of the United States and the Department of Interior and the State Department of BLM, I released myself from their assistance, I guess. And from that time on, I have been able to manage let me tell you what I claim rights to. I claim rights to the forage, the water, the access, and range improvements. Number 5, I claim rights to the same things you people have. Rights to hunt, fish, camp, and to enjoy our public lands here in Nevada. Them things, that's where my rights come from. My rights were created through beneficial use, and many years ago. That's how I created my water rights. That's how I created my forage rights. That's how I am able to stay on or have access, and these rights were created through beneficial use. I still use those rights. And so did I answer the question you wanted there? Let's go and talk about things like water rights that concern you people. In my lifetime and on my ranch, I have continuously improved water. Water is the main thing. Put many water lines, many head houses, many storage tanks, and I've scattered water all over that desert. I can tell you as wildlife people, every time I put a water in on that desert, I probably create at least 4 or 5 coveys of quail every time. I don't know how to express myself except the fact that we have a resource that is a renewable resource. It's not a resource. I look at their signs, BLM signs, and I'm sorry we don't have one here, but one they put up about 4 or 5 years ago, which says, you know, basically critical habitat, sensitive area, please stay on the designated roads. Well, at the time, there wasn't no designated road, so as far as I'm concerned, they basically closed all of our public land off to access by putting a sign up like that, if we're going to obey that sign. Now, another thing, they have come back and put designated roads on there, but here's the concern. Part of their signs have got a $100,000 fine on it, penalty fine on it, if we don't follow their signs. Now, which one of you or one of your kids or one of your employees is going to get off that road and get a $100,000 fine? And who has jurisdiction to put that sign up there? And who's legislated a sign like that? I cannot figure that out. But it's a $100,000 sign that means a lot to us as public. Who's going to be the judge that gives us that kind of penalty? There's all these kind of questions. That's why I question the jurisdiction of these people on our public land.
Well, Mr. Bundy, if this becomes a wilderness area, I don't mean to butt in on you, but we're running way short. I want to get the question answer period. If it's the Gold Butte area, and of course with Meadow Valley Wash and some others being considered for wilderness designation now, if they do that, how's that going to affect your ranching?
Well, I'll tell you the truth. I'm using my rights, and they'll probably take me to jail if they get rid of me. But I'll tell you one thing. I have preemptive rights created through beneficial use. I have continued to use them. I continue to develop the resources, and I use the resources. Now, if they keep adding, like, for example, a national conservation area onto this public land, wilderness onto this public land, it's going to be harder for me to run my cattle and do my maintenance on my thing. It'll be harder for you as a hunter, an outdoorsman, a picnicker. the thing that I see here, and I could see it back at the backcountry byway type thing, is they're going to create a road, a byway, and then they're going to say, stay on the sidewalk and don't get off on the grass. And that's where we're headed with this area. This area is in the southern California, southern Nevada, and we get into northern Arizona and even Utah. This is about the only area that hasn't been designated a wilderness or some type of park or something like that. So we're talking about not the first designation of a conservation area. We're talking about the last piece of free land in the state of Nevada, in the southern state of Nevada. That's what we're talking about here. And we're about to lose our freedom there.
Thank you. How are we doing on time?
Well, you know, probably if the law enforcement has anything, and then we'll have questions, Frank, for all three
Yes,
parties.
Could representatives from the Sheriff's Office, do we have anything to say? Can you clarify anything? We appreciate you coming down today.
I didn't get the questions beforehand, but if anybody has a question now or wants some clarification now, I'll be glad to do it.
Yes, as a matter of jurisdiction, Mr. Bundy, would you care to ask him your question about jurisdiction?
Okay, you representing Clark County Sheriff, do you have jurisdiction over that land that we're talking about, basically Clark County public lands?
Yes, sir.
Do you have any memorandums that you know about between you and BLM, giving BLM any kind of jurisdiction authority?
Not that I'm aware of, sir.
Could you give that type of memorandum of understanding to, say, share your authority? Could you share that with another government?
If the sheriff, I believe the sheriff has the authority to enter into a relationship with another agency to share jurisdiction on it. I believe he can.
Okay, and I question that because isn't he elected by we the people of Nevada, Clark County?
Yes.
Is he, don't we pay him?
Yes.
And what do we pay him to do?
I'm sorry.
All right,
Isn't it the oath that we're?
Hold on just a second. We're trying to keep this from getting into a debate. We've had a few questions. Mr. Schrum, can we just try to get the questions?
Mr. Bundy, we'll have to go ahead, and we're getting right on the fringes of a debate. Do you have any other question before we open this up for the public? I know, Mrs. Rugwell, do you have any questions for the officer, for the sheriff's one? Okay.
My only,
Okay.
what I was trying to get out of him is that his oath of office is really saying he's uphold the Constitution of the United States, and he's to protect our life, liberty, and property, which, that you agree that that's what you're to do? Yes. Thank you.
Okay, thank you.
Excellent. So we want to do public first, and then we'll have commission questions? Is that what we'll do?
Yes, that's any folks in the public would like to ask Mrs. Rugwell any questions or ask Mr. Bundy any questions? Yes, sir.
For the record, Ken Wellington from Elko County. I'm representing myself on this, and Mr. Bundy needs to move to Elko County because everybody up there carries the Constitution in their pockets. So I retired from Metro here many years ago and moved up to the Elko County area. And to answer some of his questions, yes, the sheriff has the authority of that county. The next highest person over that sheriff, or equal to the sheriff that I see through the Constitution, would be the governor of the state of Nevada. And therefore, what I've done is up in Elko is we've become more active in the Natural Resource Advisory Commission that I sit on. And I don't know how Clark County's set up, but some of the other counties, what you need to do is get people involved with that. And then what we did, all those forms that I gave Suzanne over here to share with you guys are BLM EAs or potential evaluations of closures and things that they're going to do. And we get every one of those, and I'll forward those to you guys from Elko County every time we get it. But we pay attention to what's going on, and we put our input in. Just like this commission should probably do is give a comment on this however you feel, but you should be given a comment towards this public comment. I'm not sure if it's open right now, but if the
Yes.
public comment, if it's open at this point, then this board should at least make a comment on that, because I believe the sheriff has the ultimate authority in the county. And that's my personal feeling. Again, I don't represent my board nor the Natural Resource Board, but we do pay attention to this, and I'm going to forward every time we get something to you for Elko County, and that's what I was trying to explain here. And so I'm not sure how Clark County's set up or the other ones, but you might try to set up on some mailing list with BLM, so when they have the EAs or the environmental impact studies that they're doing, that they at least forward that to you so you can at least review it. Thank you.
Ms. Shoemaker, you're sitting back there being awfully quiet. Do you have any comments?
I think Mary Jo's summary of, yes, the sheriff does have jurisdiction, therefore
I'm sorry, for the record, it won't reach if we don't get the microphone. Secretary will whip us. We don't like that. It's bad form.
Erica Schumacher, Chief Ranger for the Las Vegas Field Office. Mary Jo Rugwell stated earlier in her statement that, yes, the sheriff does have authority out there, as does the Bureau of Land Management. We have jurisdiction over those federal laws and regulations, and the sheriff has the county and state regulations that they enforce out in that area. That's how those jurisdictions operate.
Okay, thank you.
Do you have any questions from the public for these, any speakers? We'll have commission, let's go with public comment, and then we'll have commissioner questions. We need public comment on this issue. I just want to make sure we have public comment on this issue. Seeing none, we'll close public hearing.
I had a question for Mrs.
Okay, now we're commissioner questions,
I'm
so
sorry, excuse
here
me.
we are.
Yeah, I had a question for Mrs. Rockwell. You mentioned that there's kiosk set up there in the how would you get to? You mentioned there's kiosks set up in the Gold Butte area where people can get information.
Mm-hmm.
Ma'am, I'm sorry, but I was up there all day Monday. I drove well over 300 miles from Las Vegas because, you know, actually to get up in the Gold Butte area, you've got to drive about 120 miles to actually get to the Gold Butte area itself. And
You
I'll
didn't
tell you the
see
truth,
any?
I did not see one
Well, we don't
kiosk.
have nearly as many as we'd like to have. Gil? Oh.
Good morning, how are you?
We're in a process right now of developing education and information kiosks for Gold Butte, and Carrie Ronning is working with Clark County to get maps and other types of information on those kiosks. We have some signs up there. We have, the roads are all signed as designated. So those kiosks are being developed right now, and Carrie, what's the schedule like in the next?
Supposed to be installed by July 1st.
By July 1st. So we have the locations, we have the environmental documentation for those. So we're working real closely with the county Desert Conservation Program to get those up.
Well, I had noticed that you moved the boundaries from the old fence line where the Day Ranch is, the old sheep ranch. I don't know if you moved that almost all the way in to Bunkerville. That's correct, right? That's what because you have the new sign there now that says Gold Butte. And always for years, I was under the impression that Gold Butte, the start of Gold Butte was always back in there 30 miles further at the fence line where the Nave Ranch ended, and then you start into Gold Butte area proper itself. And you still have another 30 miles after that to go to get back into what's left of the old settlement of Gold Butte.
Right, and that has generated a little bit of confusion with the public because Gold Butte is a town site and it's also a cultural area. We kind of refer to that entire region as the Gold Butte region. It's over 300,000 acres in size and consists of 11 different areas of critical environmental concern. So that sign is just sort of a welcoming to the area in general, and we do plan on putting a more permanent kiosk there to provide information, so more accurate information.
Now, when you do that, and with your present designations, will that go ahead and still limit people in what they can do in way of picnicking or stopping up and see the petroglyphs or hunting or anything of the sort? Or I see it's under consideration as a wilderness area. And generally in wilderness areas, you lose all access. You have to go ahead and be able to walk in there, or there'll be parking places like they've done at Delamars, or what they're planning on doing at Delamars and other areas. You have to park, or like, to use a horrible example, is down in Southern California in the Joshua Tree National Forest. I prospected down there for years looking for old mines and lost treasures, and now I can't do that because you have to hike in. And we're going to face the same problem here, right? We'll have to go ahead to access Gold Butte. We'll have to park. I know, like a Delamars, we'll have to park and walk in. Is that correct? If it becomes a wilderness area?
Well, I think you're talking, Commissioner, about the possible designation as a national conservation area.
Yes, it's being